that you've been to some fireplaces. It's hard to carry on when you feel all alone. Now I've swung back down again. It's worse than it was before. If I hadn't seen such...
And it's Thierry Henry. And Henry is magnificent. It's absolutely magnificent. And when you need a goal, you need Thierry Henry.
Something takes place through the centre. It's Bergkamp. That's magnificent.
Evening, everyone. Evening. The esteemed panel is back. DJ and Kenny are here to discuss the four managers we're going to talk about. Good day for you, DJ. Busy?
Yeah, busy. Yeah, all good. All fit and well. Just can't wait to see the back end of this winter. It's a long old time, isn't it? You know, it starts around about end of September and it don't sort of go away till about sort of March, April time. So, yeah, but all good, Jez. Yeah, all good, mate. Thank you very much.
Kenny, mate, good day today?
Oh, it's a brilliant day. As you see, I'm in my running gear. I had a good run. Just in anticipation. I'm really looking forward to it because, you know, when you think about, you know, managers we're going to discuss, there's certain players that are common denominators for their reigns. You think about, and there's certain coaches are common denominators. Bertie Mee and Terry Neal. There's always a common denominator within both, like, in terms of coach and players. And obviously, Graham and Arsene Wenger, again, there's common denominators in terms of players as well. But I still say the iconic managers that we've ever had are Herbert Chapman, Graham and Arsene Wenger. But, of course, if you win a double at Arsenal, you have to have some sort of recognition. And Terry Neal, well, that's my time. That's when I first got into football at Arsenal. I'm very much a Terry Neal man. You know, I'm very much like late 70s, 1980s man. Yeah. So I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's get into it then. Where do we start? Basically, quick summary. Basically, Arsenal have been in the doldrums with the managers we had before. And Arsenal are looking like George Swindon, great goalkeeper for Arsenal, great stalwart of the club. Didn't have the managerial expertise. And unfortunately, Arsenal didn't invest. Now, where have we seen that one before? Certainly not with this manager, you know what I mean? But in came June 66, Bertie Mee, who basically had to pick up a team that was pretty crap. And quite quickly, he brought players in. Jules Graham, nicknamed Stroller, came from Chelsea, 60,000, I think it is. And basically wasn't a great player in midfield, but was a decent defender. That's where Bertie Mee basically put him. But we'll get through that. So 68, Arsenal got into the League Cup final, first time ever. Lost to Swindon, extra time, 3-1 on aggregate. 72, well, no, 69, of course, we had the first ever Arsenal European trophy, the Intercities Fairs Cup, where we beat Ajax in the semi-final. And then a week later, the two games over 2 weeks against Anderlecht, Arsenal turned it around at Highbury. I was at the home game for that one as a little kid. And I remember, I'll never forget that night. It was horrible, foggy, miserable night. You could hardly see from the east stand to the west stand. It was that bad. But the game went on. Arsenal won it. And then, of course, dare I mention it, 1970-71, the first double, League, Division 1. And, of course, the great cup final where Arsenal beat Liverpool 2-1. Charlie Jules getting the winner. Amazing goal. We'll never forget it. We've seen it a million times. But 72, went into the FA Cup, lost to Leeds United 1-0, which was a bit disappointing. And Didn't really do a lot after that. And then, of course, 75-76, notable year. First time Arsenal at the time had been kicked out of the FA Cup and the League Cup in the first time of playing third rounds. So that wasn't a great start. And then 1976, Bertie went. But, guys, I think we have to give credit, big, massive credit to Bertie Mee, because he came in, he had no money, right? First managerial job. And he turned the club round in such a way that we competed. We were the second team to do the double outside of Tottenham, 61, year I was born. And basically, he brought in some iconic players. George Graham he brought in, Frank McClintock. You know, we had some great players there, guys. Give us your view on what you think of what Bertie Mee achieved at Arsenal.
Well, I think what he achieved most of all was he brought a lot of discipline into the team, because he started off as the club physio, and he didn't really have any managerial experience. In fact, he had pretty much none at all, other than what he used to learn by just watching on the touchline. He relied heavily on his coaches. I think it was Dave Sexton. Was it Dave Sexton at the time? And he relied heavily on his coaches, and his coaches mainly dealt with the tactics and the way we played. So, although he was actual manager of the club, he was there really to make the final decisions, and he bought a lot of. He kept the class amongst the Arsenal badge in tow. I mean, all the players were very disciplined. You know, he was a real disciplinarian. You know, they had to make sure they was always on time for training, turned up to matches, dressed immaculately. You know, and he was a bit sort of, as we go on, he was a bit like Arsene Wenger in that way, really. You know, he was very good with, you know, making sure that they kept their noses out of the press and the papers and everything else. And one of the biggest things that he done, he got Frank McClintock in, and straight away pretty much more or less made him captain.
Yeah.
And you know, and he was a fantastic leader at the time when that team really needed it, because it wasn't really laced with fantastic talent. You know, it was disciplined. It was well drilled. The football was very, how can I say, regimental, if you like. But that's the way he played. And as I said, he relied heavily on the coaches. But Frank McClintock being the captain was a brilliant decision, because he was really the voice on the pitch, and he left a lot to Frank, and they built up a very, very good relationship. But in the end, their relationship turned very, very toxic, to the point where he then sold the captain to QPR, and that really did upset the dressing room and everything about it. But we had players like Charlie. I mean, we had a young Charlie George at the time, and he was a fantastic player, and he was Arsenal. I mean, you talk about one of our own. Mm. No better song could have been sung at that time, going back then in them years, than the Charlie George, because he was literally one of our own. You know, his family was Arsenal. He was Arsenal. He loved the club. He died for the club, and I think you never forget it. The 71, the famous celebration where he scored the second goal and just laid on the floor with his arms stretched above his head, just looking up to the heavens. I mean, that's one of the iconic Arsenal celebrations. But yeah, no, you're right, Jez. I mean, Bertie, he needs a lot of credit, because, as I said, he came into a club that was in a bit of disarray. No one really wanted the job. If I can remember, no one was really sticking their neck out and wanting the job. And as I said, he came in as the physio and took it on. So he was a layman, really, in regards to football terms, and he took it on. And to do a double against some of these teams, and eventually beating Liverpool in the final, is no mean feat. So he does deserve a lot of credit in our history of managers of this club.
I mean, when you think that was the start of the great Liverpool era, you know, they were going on then to be a steamroller. Let's be fair, right? And, and he also had Terry Neal as a player.
He did.
A young player. And we'll come onto that a little bit later. But Don Dada Diamond, mate, big up, mate. Like, share, subscribe, support your quality channel as you continue to get brilliant content on a consistent basis. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. Kenny, a little bit before your time, obviously, but you know all about Bertie Mee. I mean, what you just said there, DJ, it's so correct. Now, I've been told this. I don't know if this is true, but I remember my granddad telling me this, that one of the punishments that Bertie Mee had for players, if they got a red card, they then had to clean the changing room.
Yeah, that was true. Yeah, no, that was true. I mean, I had uncles. My uncle at the time, that was his era. I mean, as I say, I'm 50. I was only, I was born 67. So, I'm a bit like Kenny as to regards of the Terry Neal era. But obviously, when you look at Arsenal and you want to learn about the club, I mean, he used to get the players to apparently clean all the boats and all the changing rooms. Yeah,
apparently so. That's what I was told. And I mean, my granddad had a little bit to do with. He was a volunteer groundsman at Highbury in that time, and he used to tell me as a little kid. He used to tell me some of the stories that used to go on, and apparently it was Bertie Mee that brought in the question that when he signed a new player, right, or was going to sign a new player, that player had to answer a quiz about Arsenal. They had to they had to look it up, research it, and do it. How true that is, again, I've got no concrete evidence about it, but it wouldn't surprise me. He was a very strict man, and unfortunately, we haven't got that this day. But Kenny.
Well, when you talk about Bertie Mee, I got the last bits of Bertie Mee. Obviously, I would have been really young, but there's sort of parallels with Arsene Wenger, where you had good Bertie Mee, successful Bertie Mee, and then towards the end, you had the Bertie Mee where between 1974 and 76. Arsenal were always in the bottom half of the table, sort of, bottom. Well, it's a 22 club, so they were always finishing, 14th. And you think about the end of Bertie Mee's career, DJB's completely right. There was a falling out with Frank McClintock. He went to Queen's Park Rangers in 74. In 76, he was their captain when him and David Webb formed that defence, which finished second to Liverpool in 1976. So he wasn't finished. And obviously, Charlie George went to Derby after a falling out. George Graham left as well, went to Man United. So those are the sort of the Bertie Mee I remember. Arsenal really, really being a very, very poor side. And it wasn't just Arsenal. Spurs were terrible as well. I mean, only we recovered. Spurs didn't. But when I look at Bertie Mee, history's going to be very kind to Bertie Mee. Because you think about between 1953 and 1970, Arsenal didn't win anything. And for most of the 60s, they weren't even competitive. They weren't competitive at all. So when Bertie Mee joined in 66, what not only did he bring on players like Charlie George, he brought on, Radford, Georgie Armstrong, Pat Rice joined in 1966. He left Belfast to move to Islington as a lad. So, he was already brought up in Islington as a lad. So he came through the club. And obviously you had McNabb. So he built a really big team. But one thing you can't deny, I think the renaissance of Arsenal started in 67, 68 when we got to the League Cup final, when Arsenal finally became competitive. And obviously we lost to Leeds, and then the season afterwards we lost to Swindon. But we became competitive where we got ourselves into the Fairs Cup, won it in 1970. And I think that's when he was able to build a double side. But I think the late 60s is when he built that great double winning side. And obviously getting Frank McClintock from Leicester when he was part of a very good Leicester team that got to a few cup finals in the 1960s. So that's where you look at, McClintock, Bertie Mee, you think, history has to be kind. It's not such a doubles that I'm impressed with. It's how he built the club back to where it was. Probably similar to how they describe Mikel Arteta, only Bertie Mee's got trophies. He got to a few cup finals and got to a few trophies. But if you compare Bertie Mee's ascension to the throne with Mikel Arteta, obviously Mikel Arteta was a competent player, had a competent career, and he was under Pep, but he didn't really have the managerial experience. Well, Bertie didn't have it as well. He didn't have that kind of experience. But I always look at the 1960s, those kids coming through, basically like getting away from the Billy Wright era. But 1971, you think about it. In that 1971 team, there were 3 players who got into double figures. Radford, Charlie George, and Ray Kennedy was goal scorer in 19 league goals. Ray Kennedy, a guy from the northeast. Ray Kennedy, towards the end of his career, went to Liverpool, so he was another player we could hold off. And probably Bertie Mee's strict regime as well. But you think about that team, you think about the games that they won. You think about the quarter-final that year in the FA Cup against Man City away. Charlie George got the winner. Then you've got the semi-finals, the replays against Stoke, and then obviously you've got White Hart Lane, 71, and obviously that game is 71. But another thing what people seem to forget, we got to the final in 72, losing to Leeds, but in 73 we finished second to Bill Shankly's Liverpool. And one of the biggest injustices was we weren't able to get into Europe in the UEFA Cup because Spurs, the UEFA wouldn't let 2 London teams play in the UEFA Cup for 1973-74. So even though we finished second, we weren't allowed to participate. Spurs participate on the basis that they won the League Cup against Norwich City.
I did not know that.
That is another thing. But after 73, when we still had a good player, let's not forget we got Alan Ball, great player, who won the league with Everton in 1970, then joined us in 71 after we done the double. He gave us a good few years. But one thing about Bertie Mee is that will he get a statue? Well, George Graham's got to get one before him, in my opinion.
Definitely.
That's some recognition. And it's not the fact that after he left Arsenal as well, his services to football as well. Let's not forget he was part of the Watford, hierarchy to discover John Barnes alongside Graham Taylor. So he did have services to football. But for me, Bertie Mee led some great foundations. And obviously, I was talked about common denominators between Bertie Mee and Terry Neal. We're going to come to Don Howe. Don Howe was part of his coaching staff in the late 60s and left in 1972 to go to West Bromwich Albion to manage. He went
to manage West Bromwich Albion, which caused a rumpus as well because they said that we let him go again too easy. And,
exactly, definitely. But he had ambition. But let's not forget, Pat Rice played it right back in that 71 team, and he became a leader, a successor to Frank McClintock under Terry Neal, who we're going to come to right now.
He did. He took the captaincy over, didn't he? Yeah. No, I mean, go on. Sorry, Jess.
No, go on, mate. Go on.
No, go on. I was just getting back to the parallels. It's funny, really, because that's when the foundations of Arsenal really started to kick off. And if you look at parallels between Bertie Mee, and it's true what Kenny said, and our current manager, there's a lot of parallels because, Arteta's goes on about he's very disciplined and it's his way or the highway, and Bertie Mee was very, very similar to that. But what done it with Frank McClintock was that Frank McClintock wasn't quite happy with the way things were going. And I think it might have been after Don Howe was released and everything else. And he called a private meeting with the players behind closed doors. I think it was around about Christmas time in December. And Frank McClintock called all the players in for a meeting as like an open sort of forum discussion. And which in itself, there's probably not a lot wrong with it. But Bertie Mee, the character he was, he knew nothing about it. And he wasn't consulted on it. And I think that's where the relationship between him and Frank McClintock started to go a bit toxic. And that's when Frank McClintock knew his relationship with Bertie Mee was over. Hence, that's why he went to QPR and done a fantastic job there. But once again, though, if you go back then, very similar to the managers that we'll get onto, was we were still letting our players go to rivals.
Yes.
Now, a lot of people might not think that, you know, the Derby Counties and the Queen's Park Rangers of the world weren't rivals, but they were big clubs back then. You know, they were strong teams back then.
Derby County won it, didn't they? 72.
Yeah,
won the
yeah,
72.
yeah. With massive fan bases, and we were still letting rival teams go to these clubs. So you know, and if you compare that years on, you know, Alexis Sanchez going to Man United, Van Persie going to Man United, and players like this. So
Man United.
Frankie Stapleton, one of the best forwards we've ever had, go to Man United.
As you know, I've got issues with that, man. Big issues.
Cess going to Man. So yeah, I mean, it still went on even with the great managers of years ago. But as Kenny said, we won't get a statue of Bertie Mee. In fact, Bertie Mee doesn't really get the plaudits that he gets, because he kind of took the club and laid the foundations for the future of future managers like Wenger and managers like that.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think I'm right in saying this, right? Right. As I was looking at this earlier today, right? And well, this afternoon, Arsenal would be invited to compete in the Intercities Fairs Cup on a few occasions in the 60s, and they didn't bother. They said they're not interested. But when Bertie Mee came in, he said, "Yeah, we need let's compete. Let's compete in this." So, and he went and won it. Now, that's quite a statement, because he obviously had a belief in that Arsenal should be in Europe, and Arsenal beat some pretty decent sides in that run in the 69-70, the year that Arsenal won that, beating Ajax, then beating Anderlecht, who were proper teams back then. You know, I'm not saying they're not now, but that was a major feather in the cap for Arsenal. So, hey, it is what it is. But 1976, Bertie Mee went out the door, and in came one of the youngest managers Arsenal's ever had. I think still the youngest manager. I might be wrong on that, but I think this still is true. Terry Neal comes in, 34 years old, in the 76-77 season. Bearing in mind, Bertie Mee did have to go out the door in the fact that Arsenal finished, were in the same position as relegation contenders in the 74-75 season when Man United got relegated. So the writing, I think, was on the door. We'd as you guys have just said, we let players go, which maybe we shouldn't have done. So that pretty much was the final nail in the coffin for Bertie Mee. Should he get a statue? I think yes, for what he achieved. First European trophy. Everybody dismisses it. Oh, it's only that. Well, it later became the UEFA Cup, which a lot of big teams in England have won, competed for. It's only a name at the end of the day. And he won Arsenal's first double. So That to me, big up Lee, was a big statement. But hey, okay, let's move on. Terry Neal, 34 years old, youngest manager I still believe to this day. Again, had to rebuild a little bit. A lot of players have gone out the door. So he was in a bit of a situation there. 77-78, FA Cup loss to Ipswich, 1-0. We'll never forget that one. 78-79, one of the greatest cup finals ever, in my opinion.
Yeah.
3-2 beating Man United with one of Kenny's not favourite players scoring a goal. And, of course, 79-80, I've never got over this one, was the loss to West Ham, second division team, lost in the FA Cup. So 3 consecutive cup finals this guy got us to. And the one I always forget is the 79-80 Cup Winners' Cup loss to Valencia on penalties. I always forget that. Yeah, I always forget. And UEFA Cup loss in 82-83. So he did get Arsenal to a lot of finals, but he only actually won one. Which, you know, a bit of a sad indictment, isn't it, really? And I do remember at the time going up to Islington Town Hall with the throng to basically get him out the club. That's how it was. And DJ, you know, he was a decent player for Arsenal. I wouldn't say he was great.
Yeah.
Decent player. But he's come in there, pretty much no real managerial experience at all. And he's got the 3 cup finals. We're hovering about in the league, you know, kicking it about. But you've got to say he was pretty decent in getting the cup finals.
Yeah, I mean, Terry Neal, he liked this free-flowing football, didn't he? He was very, very attack-minded, you know, and the players he signed, you know, proved that. But unfortunately, with him, again, comparing him with our modern manager, he got to the finals, and he wasn't changing the way he wanted to play. So he was like the modern Ange ball, if you like. You know, he was very he didn't have a lot of plan B, unfortunately, which let him down. However, he did let players express themselves. I mean, Liam Brady had some of the best years of football under this manager, and there was a lot of players kind of. You know, I think there was a lot of players that were kind of a little bit indisciplined and stuff like that, and he didn't quite know how to get it over the line, you know, on the big occasions. As you said, Jez, you know, we got to all these finals and we choked, and I remember that Cup Winners' Cup penalty shootout, and you know, that was probably on par with us losing the Champions League under Wenger. You know, to me, that was. And I remember, I think it was Graham Ricks stepping up, and I can remember saying, he's going to miss. You know what I mean? He just didn't look comfortable at all. But as something that you people might not know, in 1979, Terry Neal was very, very close on signing a quite poor player called Diego Maradona from Argentinos Juniors, and he was very close on signing Diego Maradona in 1979, and I think he went back in 1982 to sign him as well. And Diego Maradona, and if anyone's watching don't know who Diego Maradona is, and if you don't, you've probably been living on a different planet, but in my mind, probably one of the best players I've seen. Along with Messi. In fact, I think he's better than Messi. But he was very, very close in signing Diego Maradona. Now, if he'd have got that over the line, things might have been a lot different then from what we know now. But the only reason why that didn't go through is that the FA, they didn't sanction it. but he was very keen on coming to the UK because he was going to earn much more money than he was going to get in his home country, Argentina, to help his family at the time. But yeah, I mean, I used to enjoy the football under Terry Neal, but again, it was very, how can I say, defensively, we wasn't rock solid under him. You know, we used to concede a lot of goals. But he did bring in a lot of attacking players. I mean, he signed Malcolm McDonald, didn't he?
Yeah.
He signed Malcolm McDonald. And again, another attacking player who was a fantastic striker at the time, well established. You know, brought him down from the northeast, and you know, hit the ground running. And then when the Diego Maradona deal fell through, we ended up with Charlie Nicholas, I think, for 800,000 or whatever. And we all remember Charlie. I mean, I rated him. So, you know, he was very attack minded, but again, he didn't, in my eyes, I might be wrong and people might disagree, he didn't have a plan B so much. You know, he was very one track minded manager of playing one certain way. And hence when we did get to the finals, we choked quite considerably in all the finals. I mean, some of the worst finals I've ever seen. And to this day, are still some of the worst finals I've seen, was when Arsenal's performance against Ipswich was absolutely shocking at the time. And the Arsenal performance against West Ham, where they pretty much battered us all game, we was defensive all game, was very disappointing. So, you know, that's my memories of old Terry Neal, really. I mean, still a good manager, still worth a mention because, as I said, because of all the finals he got us to, you know, the Cup Winners' Cup, FA Cups. So, you know, that was a feat in itself, really, because there were some good clubs around at the time. And that was when the FA Cup was the cup to be in.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, it ain't like it is of today. That FA Cup, if you got to 3 FA Cup finals, then that was like getting to a Champions League final every year.
I don't think any other clubs ever done it, if I'm right.
No,
I don't think any other clubs ever done it.
No.
Yes, Everton did it from 84 to 86, where they got Watford, Man United, and Liverpool.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not being funny. He was a kick away from being one of our greatest managers, wasn't he? I mean, if Rixie had scored that goal and we would have won the Cup Winners' Cup, you know, if he'd have won 3 out of 3 FA Cup finals, he probably would have gone down as one of our greatest ever managers. You know, that's how close Terry Neal was. But on the attacking front, I used to enjoy going over Highbury and watching us, you know, get a few goals. But unfortunately, we'd concede some the other end as well. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, he was that close to being one of our greatest ever managers, really.
I mean, Cliff says no plan B. Remind you of anyone? It's a bit like that, Kenny. You know, this is your era. This is when you.
You know what?
Go on.
When DJB talks about Arsenal not changing, you know, the common denominator, tactically, was Don Howe.
Yes,
I remember that era. As much as you say we had played exciting football, there were times when we were called boring Arsenal, and a lot of that was down to Don Howe. His organisation. Don Howe was a very organised coach, and
that's when he brought him back, though, didn't he? Terry Neal brought Don Howe back, didn't he?
I just remember this. This is my memories of Arsenal as a kid. The blue tracksuits with the Gazelle trainers. Do you remember the blue Gazelles?
Yes.
Terry Neal wore them. Fred Street wore them.
Yes.
Don Howe wore them. And it was hilarious that during that time, if you look at any of the old videos of Arsenal under Terry Neal, especially between 1977 up until 1980, blue tracksuits, white collars, blue Gazelle, Adidas Gazelles.
Yeah.
even though our kit was made by Umbro. But one thing I remember Terry Neal, 7 Irishmen. I know we've got a lot of Irish viewers.
I forgot to mention it. He had a big Irish influence, didn't he? Sammy Nelson.
7 Irishmen, yeah. This is it. Pat Jennings.
Yeah.
Pat Rice, John Devine, Frank Stapleton, David O'Leary, Sammy Nelson, and Liam Brady. That's 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in the reserves coming through, we had Paul Gorman as well.
Paul Gorman, yeah.
Paul Gorman. So that's my memories of the others. But when I look at Terry Neal's times, I think about Pat Rice, the captain. I remember Frank Stapleton and Alan Sunderland. But the reason why we got Alan Sunderland in event originally is because my first memories of Arsenal was actually 1978 Cup final. Obviously 77. I remember Jimmy Rimmer being in goal and Pat Jennings coming to Arsenal. I was thinking that was, even though I was only 5 when he came to Arsenal, I thought it was pretty strange because I said, what's Tottenham's number 1 doing at Arsenal? I thought it was pretty strange. But when you're 5, you don't understand anything about contractual disputes or free transfers. You just know that a great goalkeeper was coming to Arsenal, and I found it pretty strange. But when I think about 1978, you mentioned the fact that Terry Neal brought in Michael McDonald. Sadly, his knees went. But Alan Hudson as well. We remember we got Alan Hudson from Stoke, and he was there and he played in the 1978 Cup final.
Strong as an ox, wasn't he?
Another thing as well, he brought in some experience. Remember Johnny Hollins? He spent 4 years with us.
Yeah,
a lot of people don't remember that. From 1979 to 1983, Johnny Hollins spent 4 years with us. But when you think about Terry Neal, you've got to talk about the 79-80 season. You've got to think about the 4 semi-finals against Liverpool, the winning Turin, Paul Vasson against the odds, drawing 1-1.
And we were the first British team to beat Juventus.
Exactly. In
the no other team in Britain. Juventus hadn't lost to any other British team on their home circuit, and we beat them that night.
Exactly. And Stadio Comunale, and then let's not forget Highfield Road in the last replay. Brian Talbot after 14 minutes, crossed by Stapleton, nice, brilliant header. 1980, and then do you know that Brian Talbot in 1980 played 70 games? Arsenal played 70 games in 1979-80.
I always say Declan Rice is the 1980 Brian Talbot.
Brian Talbot played every minute of every game in that tournament. He did. And the end of the season, he was told to go on holiday because he collapsed through exhaustion. He played in every game. Not only that season,
100% no Kenny, didn't he?
Exactly.
Brian Talbot.
We bought him from Ipswich. He scored in the 1979 Cup final. But if you think about that time, when you look at the Cup final against Ipswich, Arsenal were the favourites. Didn't turn up. Ipswich played the game of their lives. They won. I thought in 1980, I know it's an excuse, but I think our players were exhausted. We didn't matter games. You think about it. We got to 2 finals. Yeah. We were playing a game every 2-3 days because we couldn't serve Liverpool. We had 3 replays towards the end of the season. If you remember the North London derby in 1980, where we won at White Hart Lane, we had to play the kids, and the guy who made his debut in that derby was Paul Davis, and we still beat him 2-1.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we played Juventus in April. Yeah. We rested the kids, so that's one of the great memories, Tony. But however,
and do you remember a young Paul Vasson? Paul Vasson scored against Juventus.
He's not with us anymore. South London boy. Yeah, lost obviously after he got a knee injury. He succumbed to like the temptations, which is very sad. But the reason why I've got a beef with Frank Stapleton is that. Mm-hmm. We knew Alan Sunderland was coming to the end of his career at Arsenal, but Frank Stapleton, when he left us to go to Man United, he was only 25. And I know it was over contractual dispute, and I know that back in Ireland he was a Man United fan. Respect for that, but how he did it, how he engineered the move, it wasn't just the sort of how he did it; it's the consequences of it, because it took us 3 years to replace him. 3 years to replace him. You think about it. We tried David Hawley from Leeds. didn't work out. We tried Lee Chapman.
Lee Chapman.
Paul Mariner.
Yeah,
Paul
Mariner,
Mariner.
obviously, but he was a split striker, but he was
God
okay.
bless him.
It wasn't until we got David Woodcock from Cologne that we actually improved in that area. But by that time, we weren't the team that we were. Pat Rice went to Watford. But one of the things that the bizarre things about Terry Neill, and no one really mentioned it, something bizarre happened. We got a 19-year-old guy from Queen's Park Rangers called Clive Allen, and we paid £1 million for him? And then
Just over $1 million, 1.1, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, and two months later, Clive Allen is at Crystal Palace, and we got Kenny Sampson. Now, don't get me wrong, that was one of the strangest things I've ever seen.
He didn't settle, did he, Clive Allen? He came in with a big price tag, and he was
only 19 as well. Yeah.
But getting back to Terry Neill though, Jez, as well. I mean, one of the things I did admire about him when he towards the end or like the middle reign of his management, players like Liam Brady were coming to the end of their best, you know, and Ricks and players like this were coming to the sort of tail end of their best times, really. So he went through sort of 2 rebuilds while he was at the club. So I mean, you have to admire him for that, because again, for a young manager, he had to go through 2 rebuilds at the club. So I mean, you know, that takes a lot of doing. That takes a lot of credit. And again, going parallels with this manager, he never had the money as what they've got today. From what he's had today, and this guy's been in the job 5 years, and this is what I said, he's going to have to go through another rebuild, and Terry Neill done that, and he's still got us to cup finals. And my biggest memory of Terry Neill was the FA Cup final against West Ham, because where I went to school, they was all West Ham fans, so I was getting pelters for months when we lost that final. And the Cup Winners' Cup was, that was incredible.
I think also is the fact that you touched on Liam Brady. You know, he was starting to on the downslope.
His head got turned, didn't it? His head got turned because he knew he was going to move to Italy, and that's where he was going to play with.
Yeah, still a fantastic player.
It's still fantastic, but let's not forget. You talked about Graham Ricks missing a penalty in Brussels. Liam Brady missed a penalty as well. He's one who set the chain of events in defeat.
He did. I couldn't believe it.
Everyone always remembers the guy who missed a penalty which enabled Valencia to win the game. But let's not forget, Liam Brady missed one as well, which started the sort of like chain of events that led to us losing. But one that when you always talk about Terry Neill, I don't think him and Don Howell don't get enough credit for the fact that the young players that came through after they left. You think about it, Rocastle, Thomas were at the club when Terry Neill was there. Martin Hayes was at the club when Terry Neill was there. We're going to talk about him later. Noel Quinn came from Dublin under Terry Neill. And of course...
Was it David Price as well, wasn't it? Pricey was there as well, wasn't he?
David Price. David Price was a very, very good player for us from about 19... I remember from 1970... probably about 1976 to 1980 when he went to Crystal Palace. But David Price was a very effective player. He played in, I think he played in the Odegaard position. But
he didn't play the team, did he?
The Odegaard position was very different, where it was basically he used to make runs from the midfield and get into really good goal scoring positions. Yeah. And he was very effective in terms of the goal scoring charts alongside Stapleton and Sunderland. But David Price, was a very underrated player, someone we should definitely get a mention. But you think about it, Terry Neill in November 1983 gave Tony Adams his debut when we lost 2-1 when it was basically the beginning and the end. You think about it, Terry Neill's last season, you have to talk about 82-83. Got to 2 semi-finals, got smashed by Man United, and then even though we beat Spurs in on the way to the League Cup fourth round, we've got to talk about our defeats at home. Sunderland, Coventry beat us at home.
Yeah.
West Brom beat us at home. And of course, Liverpool beat us home, which they normally do anyway. We have to talk about Warsaw, which was the final straw.
Oh, God. Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
you have to talk about Warsaw, the final straws. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
I mean, it's a good point you made, though, Kenny, because I think Don Howe had more to do with it than Terry Neal.
Yeah.
The foundations they laid for the youth project and the academy players. And I think that was more to do with Don Howe, whose son.
Obviously, there was other players.
Of course there was. Of course there was.
Like Terry Murphy, Terry Burton, Steve Burton, Johnny Cartwright. Obviously, they were part of that. And believe it or not, the person who used to, like I said, give the youngsters lessons was the ex MP, Labour MP, Kate Howie.
Yeah,
believe it or not.
No, well,
I've got a couple of good comments I want to bring up, actually, which I've starred. Let's go and have a look. I think they're quite good comments, actually, in fairness. As Harvey says, let's talk about the semi-finals, right? It always was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
For years that you played at neutral ground. I remember when we were going to play. I think it was Ipswich. We went and played Orient. I think it was Orient. Yeah, it was Orient at Stamford Bridge, rather than both London teams travelling up to Villa Park like it used to be and all that. What do you think? Do you think that has actually spoiled the FA Cup a little bit?
I think Harvey's made a good point now. I think when they started the semi-finals at Wembley and they weren't played at a neutral, because Wembley was the place that you inspire to go to.
Yeah.
In the final.
Yeah.
Wembley was special. You know, it was like waiting all year for Christmas morning to come and hopefully you get your new bike or your new whatever you wanted, your new Arsenal top or something, you know. It was always special. I think the minute that they kind of moved the semi-finals and made the semi-finals at Wembley took the gloss away of the FA Cup. And not only that, you know, you got into the commercial aspects, didn't you, of the Champions League has had a big demise of the FA Cup. Years ago, if you won the league, you played in the European Cup. If you came second, third or fourth, you went into the Cup Winners' Cup or the UEFA Cup or the Fairs Cup. If you won the FA Cup, you played in the UEFA Cup. But nowadays, your top 5 places and your top 4 teams go into the Champions League. Well, straight away, you've only got to finish 4th to play in a bigger competition, so-called competition, than the FA Cup. So I think the Champions League format changed the way clubs think about change the way the bigger clubs think about the FA Cup now, because you only have to finish 4th. So that was another reason.
But DJ, sorry to cut in, but don't you think the precedent was set in '91 when we played our semi-final against Tottenham? Obviously, because both sides had big followings, you know, across London, obviously, and the UK. Yeah. And the fact is that obviously we could have. There wasn't a big enough arena for us to play our semi-final. For instance, if we played West Ham in the semi-final in '91, that game would have been at White Hart Lane. And if we played or Spurs played West Ham, it would have been at Highbury. But I think that's when the precedent was set. And then we had another precedent 2 years ago where we played Spurs again at '93. But Sheffield Wednesday were playing Sheffield United, and they actually wanted to play the game. The game was actually set to be played at Leyland Road, and both fans weren't having it. So they sent everyone down to Wembley, and then for the next year, '94 FA Cup, both semi-finals at Wembley. So it really started in the '90s, and Arsenal and Spurs set that precedent. But you're right.
Yeah, true.
the problem with the FA Cup is that the small clubs don't think they got a chance of winning it. That's why they play. They don't play their best teams, and obviously the big clubs, because of big threats to set up a Super League, they've increased the Champions League, and that's the thing. All you have to do now in football, if you're a big club in Europe, I'm going to form a midweek league on our own without UEFA's say so. It's all right. Let's have an extra place in the Champions League. Let's have more matches. Let's have a league with the group stages.
Yeah. Yeah, and not only that, the commercial, to stay exactly, Jez, to stay. It's like these clubs now, they would sacrifice if they're in the quarterfinal, semi-final of an FA Cup, but they're sort of languishing to relegation out of the Premiership, they're not playing a full team. You know what I mean? They'll throw the FA Cup in the bin because staying in the Premiership is more lucrative. You know?
We do remember, don't we, what happened with Man United and the FA Cup because of the UEFA Champions League and all that, which I think
right.
myself.
I'd like to ask Tottenham, would they take relegation this season and win a trophy?
Yeah, well, I fucking love it. Ryan says Arteta doesn't get the credit he deserves, lads.
Okay.
I don't know about that at all. But
what evidence? What evidence? What's the? I don't know.
What's the? Yeah, I respect you, Ryan, but I can't see the basis.
Totally respect, yeah, 100%.
I can't see the basis of your argument on that at all. If you want to elaborate, please do, and I'll show the comment.
But with Ryan, if all I've got to say, Ryan, when myself, Lee, and Jez were doing player ratings, go and look at the player ratings. Especially this time of the year when we were playing beautiful football between this year and up until April. Look at the ratings we gave the manager and look at the ratings we gave the players. I think you may change your mind.
Yeah, good point, Kenny. Very good point. Cliff says, I'm of the opinion that if Jennings was English, he would have been our number one over Ray Clements. Anyone agree?
Yes.
Good comment.
Yeah. And I'm not biased because even when Pat Jennings was at Spurs, he was a magnificent goalkeeper. I mean, he was one of the best alongside Gordon Banks, probably, and Shilton, probably the three top best goalkeepers I've ever seen.
Totally agree with that. Harvey says,
it's natural.
Oh, fantastic.
Well, he's there. He's
here we go. Marinello, the Arsenal's Georgie Best.
Yeah. Never quite happened.
Charlie Nicholas, you mean more like the Arsenal Charlie Nicholas before Charlie Nicholas arrived?
Yeah.
I felt sorry for him because we brought him in and the press gassed him up. This is going to be the Scottish George Best Arsenal signings. He never had a chance, did he? Let's be fair.
No.
He gave him all the big, large. And then absolutely berated him. It's a disgrace, wasn't it, really?
Yeah, it was a shame, really, because he was like the poster boy, wasn't he? And he was built up, and he was put out there to be the next, as you said, Georgie Best, and came with a big reputation. And unfortunately, he got kind of carried away with himself, and rest is history with him.
Do you think the reason why? The British public needed a new George Best because by that time, history showed that George Best was on his last legs because of injuries. Everyone said that George Best lost his career because of outside.
It was
actually injuries that ended George Best's career. Because remember, he had a cartilage operation injury in 1966 before his 20th birthday, and he had other injuries where you could say he wasn't the same player. And that's probably why he turned to drink and distractions because of his injuries.
As a quick little story, guys, when I was at school, I had a PE teacher, a Yorkshireman, and he had I think his cousin or someone like that was very good friends with Georgie Best, with their Irish connection and everything else. Went to school with him and everything else. And he used to show us videos of George Best. And that guy, every minute and every second of the game, used to get kicked to pieces, and that guy would still stay on his feet. He was getting kicked lumps out of. So you're true, Kenny. I mean, the injuries that he had through his career, and not only that, his legs were shot to pieces because defenders, no one could touch him. He was a fantastic player, but he was getting kicked to pieces. He was getting lumps kicked out of him all over the place.
I'd hate to think when he actually finished what the state of his shins were. They must be like the back of a crocodile. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
But another thing, though, Jez, you never see him diving on the floor and rolling around as if he'd been shot, or diving in the penalty box to try and get a penalty. Just didn't happen. These players didn't. They just stayed on their feet. Just didn't happen.
I did mention a couple of weeks ago we were having a chat, and it was black and white. I think it was match of the day game. It was on TV. I remember it. It was West Bromwich Albion against Man United at the Hawthorns, when the pitches were like ploughed fields in winter. They were like just mud baths, weren't they? And I always remember this ball. Alex Stepney kicked Man United keeper, kicked the ball out, and it ended up in the centre circle, and it just went. Right? And there was Jeff Astle, great West Brom player, and Bobby Charlton went in 50-50, and the ball just popped up in the air like that, and you could literally see these two legs go bang.
Yeah.
And the ball come out, and they've basically got up and got on with the game.
Carried on with the game. Yeah.
That was it. There's no sort of like
rolling around.
Out. They just got on with it. Anyway, let's move it on to Jules Graham. Terry Neal's gone. Jules Graham, May 86, joined from Millwall to Arsenal. Ex-legend, well, the legend of a player and manager to me. Big debate. I'll still keep on about it. We'll come into that one about which should he have a statue. But joined us, 87, League Cup, Charlie Nicholas, 2 goals, relatively new signing, beating Liverpool. That was an iconic game. 89, well, do we need to talk about that? Beating Liverpool at Anfield to win Division 1 after the awful tragedy at Hillsborough and all that. 91, we talked about it last week. Yeah, one of the greatest teams, in my view, ever, winning Division 1 again. 93, FA Cup, League Cup double. First time we've ever done that one. And then 94, Palmer, Cup Winners' Cup. Alan Smith, Smudger, scores the goal. That's the only cup final abroad I've ever been to, in Copenhagen. To me, this guy, right, some of the players he had, Rocky Roadcastle, Paul Davis, Michael Thomas, Alan Smith, John Lukic in goal. We can go on and on and on. And the amount of games that season, right, talking about the 87 and the 89 seasons, they played a lot of sodding games, and they still got it over the line, DJ. I mean, it was an iconic time for Arsenal. Yeah, it wasn't always the prettiest of football. I'll give you that, right? It wasn't like tippy-tappy great stuff. But what that man achieved, basically, in the nine odd years he was manager at Arsenal before whatever happened, I thought he was an absolute legend player, one double winner, right? Double winner in the 70-71 European Intercity Fairs Cup, first ever European trophy Arsenal. I mean, what more was to be said about this guy, mate?
My best Arsenal, my favourite Arsenal manager you know, and I'm not taking anything away from the great Arsene Wenger, but my favourite manager, because I've touched on this before and I'll say it again, what that man done, and then winning that cup against Parma in Copenhagen, when they had the likes of Gianfranco Zola playing, when they had Zola playing for them. I mean, they had they were a top European team. You know, they were sort of on the borderline of what Real Madrid are of today. You know, they had some top players on that team. And he went there again against all the odds and stifled them. You know, again, Alan Smith up front, you know, he was pumped with all sorts of balls, and he got him to be a player that could hold the ball up no matter where it came to him, chest, head, his feet, you know, turned Alan Smith into the striker he was, and improved players throughout. I mean, you know, the players that he improved was just incredible. And you saw an improvement season in, season out with this manager. You know, they weren't like little improvements where you think, oh, has he really improved? They were brilliant players under this manager. And one thing that this manager instilled with that team was a never say die attitude. You know, they used to leave everything on that pitch when they came off that. You know, there was never no player ducking out of tackles. There was never no player kind of having a stroll. He wouldn't have put up with Odegaard of today, ducking in and out, not fancying it when the going's tough. You know, oh, all right, we'll keep him as captain, you know. He just wouldn't put up with it. You know, and he was, what I liked about him as well, he was, you say this modern manager's got the fans on his side. This guy got a lot of fans behind him because he weren't scared of making changes. He weren't scared of making changes. His game management was brilliant. You know, he'd make the right substitution at the right time. He was just a great manager. He was a great leader, great manager. He instilled a lot of belief into the team. The players respected him. I mean, Tony Adams, I would say, although he probably, you know, I would say that Tony Adams under George Graham enjoyed his time probably more under George Graham than he did Arsene Wenger. You know, you know, I might be wrong, but I think if Tony was being honest, I think he would quietly turn around and say that my best times was under George Graham. Yeah, incredible. And he wasn't blessed again. You know, even back then, Arsenal was very tight on the old purse. You know, there wasn't millions and millions of pounds on offer. He couldn't go out. I mean, he was buying players like Alan Smith. You know, Alan Smith was coming to the club. You know, he was getting. He bought a lot of players on like David Rowe because he had to, because there weren't that much money. He wasn't given the money he deserved for the success he brought to the club. Phenomenal manager. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, as you said, Jez, you know, sometimes you'd sit there and you'd go, God, hurry up, whistle, you know what I mean? 1-0 to the Arsenal. And you'd be sitting there and you go, oh, come on, ref, how long, ref? I'm bored out of it. And it was. But, you know, what he'd done, he had to do. And in his mind, when he went to Anfield in 89 and we won 2-0, even of today, he had no doubt in his mind he was going to do that. He knew he was going to pull that off. He knew he was going to pull that off.
That sorry to interrupt you, mate. That is the one thing that I have to give him the utmost credit. We hadn't won there since 1974, right?
He was getting battered there a lot of times and all.
Oh, dear God, did we? And the fact we've gone up against a great Newcastle team, Kenny Dalglish manager. I'm not saying he's the best manager ever, but we had to go there, bearing in mind how they'd picked up pace after the tragedy of Hillsborough.
Yeah.
And come back and basically overtaken us, and we had to go up there and win by 2 clear goals. I won't lie. I remember going up there and I'm thinking, a lot of people, right, talking about it on the way. Nah, we can't beat Liverpool 2-0. Nah, it's not going to happen. Never going to happen. And I remember being in the Anfield Road end that night, and it was a little bit flat. DJ, you know it. You were there. You know,
apart from my kids being born, that was one of the best nights of my life. That was, you know,
I totally agree with you, mate.
Nothing will surpass that at all. The Champions League, if we'd have won the Champions League, that might have just nicked it. But having said that, and the win against Parma again, I mean, that was just Alan Smith again popping up with a fantastic goal. Again against all the odds. I can't believe George Graham hasn't got a statue outside. It grates every time I go to the Emirates. I can't, and I look at the statues, and right, you know, the statues deserve to be there of Henry's and your Bergkamps and all that. But our George Graham has not got one. Is beyond me.
Right, I think it's an absolute disgrace.
And hopefully, but again, you know, I don't know what you think, Kenny, but to me, he's the best Arsenal manager that I've witnessed in my time so far.
In that time period, I think of the 9 years, thereabouts, what he achieved was legend.
Can I just say, sorry, Kenny, can I just say that I'm not saying George Graham is the best manager of the teams. I think Arsene Wenger created the best team with the Perez's and all of that. I'm just talking on a managerial point of view, but you know, go on, mate.
No, you know what, DJ? It's close because I always say the '91 team is better than the Invincibles, and that the only team that surpasses the Invincibles in the '91 team is Arsene Wenger's 2002 team, which we're going to come to. When you think about George Graham, you have to talk about obviously Tony Adams, but you know the best thing he did is that he quietly ended the Arsenal careers of Tony Woodcock, Paul Mariner, and he went with youth. Youth. You think about it. Martin Hayes was about to go to Huddersfield. He persuaded Martin Hayes to stay. He got 24 league and cup goals with him, 19 in the league. He ended our obsession with Charlie Nicholas. But one thing he took over and made use of the foundations. I don't say took over. He made use of the foundations of that youth team. Tony Adams, you know, promoted him to the first team. Remember, we used to have David Leary and Tommy Caton. Tommy Caton, got rid of Tommy Caton, and obviously kept David O'Leary. Kenny Sampson as captain, he kept him as well. Although they were later to fall out in '89, where he was just wouldn't select him. But obviously, I think he was. By buying Nigel Winterburn, I think it was a big in the end for Kenny.
Yeah.
But you think about it, you know, he made use of the experience of Clive Anderson. You know, he promoted David Rocastle, who was already getting games under Don Howe anyway. But you think about that team. And if you look at our games at Liverpool that season, we lost to Liverpool 2-0 at Anfield and 1-0 at home. But everyone talks about that. Arsenal going for a league title challenge in '89 as though it was the first time. Oh no! We lost that. We went on a 25 unbeaten run in the league and cup, and we were topping the table. We were topping the table from about October up until February. We were the team that was leading the title. We were the ones that were winning every week. Obviously, deep down, we kind of knew that the experience of Liverpool and Everton would surpass us, but we won at Everton that season. You know, the team that went on.
Nice to go with us in them days.
Yes.
Do you remember it was direct from the corner? I think Steve Williams scored direct from the corner.
Went straight in, yeah.
It went straight in. David Rocastle was playing beautiful football.
Oh.
And you've got to talk about that semi-final against Tottenham because they won the first leg at Highbury. Clive Allen got the goal from a rebound, and every Arsenal fan I don't know about you guys, but I still thought we'd see it through. Every Spurs fan I spoke to went, look, you lost the first leg. Stop sulking. You're still going to beat us. You'll beat us at White Lane. I went, I'm not really that convinced, you know. You've got Clive Allen. You've got that great midfield playing great football, 5 in the midfield, Clive Allen up top in his own. We can't beat you. And then that announcement at half-time telling Spurs fans how to apply for cup final tickets, the Littles Cup final against Liverpool.
Yeah.
Should have done it, should they?
No.
That galvanised us. You know, Viv Anderson got one of the goals, and Niall Quinn made it 2-1, and then 3 days later, Dave Rocastle. But one of the things that George Graham did perform was winning our first trophy after 8 years and beating a mighty Liverpool. And the reason why it's significant, he taught us how to beat Liverpool, because without winning in 87, we wouldn't won the league at Anfield in 89. Because don't get me wrong, Liverpool are a superior side to him, but we knew how to beat them. We finally had the confidence we could beat them. Now, if you look at the season afterwards in 88, 87, 88, we got to the League Cup final, lost to Luton Town.
Yeah, I remember that. Oh, dear.
Luton Town, bloody Brian Steen and Martin Dibble. And Martin and Nigel Whittam missed a penalty.
Yeah. And, I love Brian Steen. Yeah, Steeny and
we always blame Gus Caesar, but how many chances did we miss? How many chances did Martin Hayes miss? How many chances did
Gus Caesar? I've forgotten about him.
If we put those chances away, and our good friend Nigel Whittam put the penalty away, we wouldn't. Who cared whether Gus Caesar brought him to the team? Luton were dead. We were 2-1 up. We were dead.
Yeah,
and Dibble made some unbelievable saves. We had completely dominated the game. Does it give you any parallels with 13 years later at Cardiff when we played Liverpool? When we smashed, ended up losing?
Smashed the living daylights out of Liverpool at Cardiff. Absolutely killed them.
But you think about that. 88, 89, by that time he's bought Bowles and Dixon, and he made one of the most significant signings of that season, which probably enabled us to win the championship. Brian Marwood from Sheffield Wednesday.
Brian Marwood was incredible on that wing.
Do
you remember the song, Kenny? Brian Marwood on the wing.
Yep. Yeah. Brian Marwood. And you think about that season, we should have won the league that comfortably anyway.
We should have. We should have won that league.
And then by that time, we had a bit of a slump. Remember, we drew at home to Charlton. Further on, we lost to Derby County. Yeah. Drew at home to Wimbledon, and by that time, it was over. Yeah, I remember going to the Wimbledon game and the players doing a lap of honour, and all our fans were so angry. Even gave some of the players the bird, and I had zero confidence that we were going to win at Anfield. But when I woke up in the morning, I thought, you know what? Why not? Why can't we beat?
I said to myself, first goal wins it.
Yeah, I was saying, why not? And I kept on coming out with permutations. I said, right, if we score in the first half, that panic Liverpool, and then who knows? They may gun ho. We're gonna get our revenge. But if you noticed, when we went in a 0-0, for some reason, I was watching it with my brother and went, we can still win this because it's only 0-0. That was good. And then as soon as Alan Smith got that goal, I thought, you know what? It's now or never. We've got to go out and win this. Because I thought, when I saw Liverpool players trying to, McMahon going 1 minute, Johnny Barnes not walking it to the corner, I thought, we got.
Why did you? It just. I mean, we had Kevin Richardson, didn't we, playing that day? Didn't we?
He nicked the ball off him, didn't he?
He signed in for Watford in '87. I was at his first. I was at his first game. And
I mean, look at the players we had. I mean, come on, look at the players we had. You wouldn't. These players. This is why this manager, in my book, was an absolute legend, because Martin Hayes. I mean, he looked $1 million.
Yeah,
I mean, we got nothing. And players like Kevin Richardson from Watford. You know what I mean? It's just You know,
Perry Groves. Let's not. Everyone forgets that he bought Perry Groves from Colchester.
yeah, Perry Groves from Colchester. And this is what I'm saying. I mean, these players, he had no money, but he got whatever players came and put that shirt on. They were coached brilliantly. They all had jobs to do. They all knew their job, and they all turned out to be, you know, good players. I mean, Rocastle was just incredible, wasn't he? Bless him.
Rocastle, I think from about 87 to about 1990, Rocastle was probably one of the best players in the league, alongside John Barnes, by the way. It was always either John Barnes or Rocastle, but that's, I think, when Rocastle got injured in 1990, when he missed the World Cup, Bobby's World Cup squad. And I think he actually went to the papers and said, the only person who doesn't want me to go to the World Cup is George Graham, because I think it was all about, you know, not rushing him back from injury so he could play a few games for to get himself a connection.
And then he also bought Paul Merson on, didn't he? I mean, what a player! I mean,
fantastic footballer. Scored some really important goals, where especially in that 88-89 season, where you know, you remember the game against Tottenham when we won 2-0 when he got the first goal. The way he just, you know, he just that shot across Bobby Mims, and obviously Michael Thomas as well.
And as I said it last week. You know, there's players of George Graham's team would make the current Arsenal team, walking into the Arsenal team. Okay. But there's not many players that are playing today, apart from probably Gabriel, Saliba, Rice. There's not many of them players in this current Arsenal team that would get in the George Graham team.
Do you think that's a very great point, actually. Do you think when we had John Lukic, right, who I thought was decent, do you think David Raya would get in that team over John Lukic?
No.
I don't know.
John Lukic one-on-one. John Lukic one-on-one was great. He was brilliant at coming off his line one-on-one. He was so quick.
He won the league with Leeds in '92. After winning 8,
he was no mug. Brilliant shot stopper as well, John Lukic.
Okay, well, we come into the. I'm just going to share the screen with this bit, if I can find it, which I think is quite interesting in when we look at what he did. But there you go, Arsene Wenger.
Yeah,
came in, joined us 96. Fair play, you know. He inherited that team.
Incredible.
Sorry, Kenny, I don't know. Have you?
I can see it. I saw it. No problems.
You know, Premier League title 97-98, 2001-02 Premier League title, double 03-04. Now, this is where I think it started to go sour. Right, he quite quickly won 3 titles and a lot of FA Cups, 7 FA Cups, right? So you got to give him credit there, right? 2013-14 and 2014-15, the year 2016-2017, and that is when I got young. That's when I gave up and left. Not going to talk about the Community Shields because at the end of the day, they're just not, you know, they're not trophies to me. They're just shit. But this is where I think, gentlemen, with the teams he had and the 03-04, we started to let players go, which I think this is where it all started to go tits up. Personally, he never kicked on. He never kicked on in the Premier League. With what he could have done, in my opinion, he should have done better.
That's a fair point, Jez. I mean, when Arsene Wenger came in, no one had really heard of him. I know I hold my hands up. I didn't.
I never heard of him.
Who's this guy? Who are we bringing in here? Now, there was one player very, very, very important to Arsene Wenger's early career at Arsenal, and that's David Dein. You know, and you know, when he came in straight away, within the first season, you could see the absolute style of play had completely changed from what you was used to under George Graham, and that it was completely different, completely alien to any fan on the terraces. You know, it was on the floor, it was quick, it was 1-2, it was passing, possession base. You know, they were keeping the ball for minutes and minutes. You know, they just wasn't giving the ball away. It was incredible. But yeah, you cannot deny what he done at the football club. And I wasn't one of these hatred fans towards the end, because I didn't think the guy deserved that, because the players he brought to the club, I have not to this day seen to this day. I mean, I haven't seen players like Henry. We can't say Bergkamp because that was Bruce Riox. But I mean, I've not seen players like Henry and Pires and players like that to this day. So
Anelka, Vieira, all those Cannon.
Yeah, Petit, we had. I mean, where Terry Neal had the Irish influence, this guy had the French influence, didn't he? But yeah, he was absolutely fantastic. And when we did win them premierships, we were worthy winners of them. The football we played was just incredible. The goals we scored and everything else. So on that basis, he's got to go down as probably, again, alongside George Graham, probably the best two managers that I've witnessed at Arsenal. But it's true what you said, Kenny. Then he went a little bit. He went a little bit stubborn for his own good. He was letting players go. He was getting a bit cocksure of himself. Oh, that's all right. We'll let Man United have this player, and you know, we'll let our rivals have this player. And we wasn't getting good money for them. They were going for sort of silly money as well. And he wasn't really replacing them. And it all went a bit stale, and it kind of tarnished his kind of managerial career at Arsenal, which is a shame, because look at his record, look what he's won. I mean, it's just incredible. But and then he built the Invincibles, didn't he? He beat the Invincible team, unbeaten, which no manager has ever done. Pep's not even done it. Klopp couldn't do it. No manager's ever done it. I don't know whether it'll all be done again. I don't think it will, personally, in this day and age. And that team there that he built was really good. But I remember some of the results that he used to. I mean, we used to blow teams off the park. I mean, literally.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, within the first 5-10 minutes, teams were finished. I mean, some of the games. I mean, Spurs was just brushed aside on a regular basis. You know, I mean, I remember that game when
remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that game against Spurs when Henry picked the ball up and he ran at them and he just, you know, it was great. And some of the goals that were scored, the 1-2s around the boxes, and Liverpool weren't false then, really. You know, they were a good side, but Man United was his main. Fergie was his main nemesis. You know, and people say about, we lost the league because Pep's in charge of a great Man City team. Well, Wenger done it with Ferguson. Let's not forget. I mean, when Arsene Wenger took over Arsenal, Man United were a juggernaut. Man United were like the Man City of today. But this guy weren't having none of that. He built a team to not only compete with Man United, but to get right under their skin. I mean, Roy Keane at Man United used to boss the show, and everyone was scared of him. And then all of a sudden, he came up against Patrick Vieira. Arsene Wenger put Patrick Vieira in, and all of a sudden, Roy Keane's thinking, "Hang on a minute, I've met me match and more some." Because let's face it, technically, he was a better player than Roy Keane.
Yeah.
Roy Keane was a magnificent midfield player, and I'd have had him at a drop of a hat at Arsenal at any time. But he was technically a better player than Roy Keane.
all day.
And then the style of he didn't defensively. He kind of let the back four run itself. Really, funny enough, it kind of coached itself. He weren't really defensive as a coach. He didn't quite know how to kind of coach the defenders in a way. He kind of let that take care of itself.
It was never Arsene's thing, though, was it?
It was never Arsene's thing defending. No, the only reason why we were solid and we kept was because of the Tony Adams and the back four that he inherited at the time. That sort of kind of got him over the line. But it's a shame he outstayed his welcome, really. But again, he got the Emirates. He was very influential in the Emirates and the building of the stadium. And he didn't have a lot of money.
And the training ground. He
redesigned
it, didn't he?
He changed the ethos of all the football, what they ate, their nutrition, their training, what time they went to bed, what time they got up. He changed that culture as well, the drinking culture that was at Arsenal, the lads going out, and all of that. And we all know about the pee-ups that they used to have, the old Arsenal boys. He got rid of all of that culture. And in parallel to Bertie Mee, he instilled a lot of traditional values to the club as well. He kind of that went a bit AWOL under George Graham a little bit. Yeah. But what Arsene Wenger done, he instilled that back into the club, a bit like Bertie Mee, who we spoke about earlier. He got the discipline back in there. That you be on time at training. His punishments were very good to players that didn't toe the line. But he was a very calm man in the dressing rooms. I mean, you hear of players of today. He wouldn't give the air dryer treatment. Sometimes he'd just sit there quietly. He wouldn't say a word.
Stare at them, didn't he? I remember it. I think it was Tony Adams, right? I think it's in his book. It was half time against, I can't remember. I can't remember. And he just stood there staring. He didn't say a single word.
Didn't say a word. And he would give his team talk. He'd give his team talk at the start of the match and send them out to play. And come half time, he used to say things like, "Well, we've spoken about how I want it played," and he just used to say nothing. He'd very rarely. But he'd always back his players as well. I mean, the media didn't quite know how to take this guy. He weren't, he was kind of, sometimes the media wouldn't try to kind of put him in the corner and he weren't, I didn't see it, didn't see it. And he did see it.
I remember that.
He'd see the sending offs and the red cards. He'd see it as plain as day. Wenger was too... very intelligent man, speaks about 7 or 8 different languages, doesn't he? Very intelligent man, very clever. So he saw it, but I didn't see it.
I didn't see it.
And he had trouble with his zip, didn't he? He had trouble with the old zip on his coat. He couldn't get that done up.
That was a classic, that is.
But listen, a great manager. Some of the football I saw under this manager was just breathtaking.
It was breathtaking. I mean, I don't think even the great Man United teams could match some of the football that Arsenal used to play. In both teams. It was proper, what I call sexy football. Kenny, give us your breakdown, mate. He won a lot of FA Cups. Sadly.
He fell in love with the FA Cup. He fell in love with the FA Cup, and he fell out of love with the FA Cup. And then the FA Cup actually saved his reputation to a certain extent towards the end, because there's two Arsene Wengers. The Arsene Wenger who produced the 2 double winning sides and the Invincibles, and changed the way, changed the diets of the players. encouraged our defenders to play out the back and play football. Told you, Tony Adams, you can go up, do what you used to do under George Graham, go up and score your goals as long as you leave cover at the back. Got Nigel Winterburn and all of them playing football. I think Nigel Winterburn enjoyed his football under George Graham.
Yeah.
Bold, I think it was too late for Bold, but Martin Keown, Martin Keown would always enjoy his time under Wenger because that's when Martin Keown was finally recognised as an Arsenal great because George Graham, not Graham, Arsene Wenger gave him his chance. Bold was coming to the end of his career. It was Keown's time, even though Keown was 31, 32. But he made,
sorry, Kenny, did he bring him? I can't remember. Did he bring him back from Everton or Villa?
No, it was George Graham brought him back in '93. But Martin Keown there was really not a place for Martin Keown in the team. Sometimes we played Martin Keown it was a horses for courses match, and there were times when we played him in midfield sometimes as a holding player, as a man marking holding player. But in terms of defence, it was mainly when Wenger got to Arsenal in '96. That Martin Keown was finally given his head. He gave players a chance. He gave Ian Wright a chance to see, but he didn't work out under Ian Wright. He quietly ended Ian Wright's career. He quietly ended the career of Paul Merson. Johnny Hart's never was a Wenger player, so he quietly ended his career, sold him to West Ham. There was loads of things that he'd done quietly and respectfully. David Platt, he ended that quite respectfully as well. And one thing people talk Arsene Wenger, let's not forget that Arsene Wenger had a bit of steel in him, and his teams had steel. And it didn't just come from the players. Because Arsene Wenger could had a few occasions with managers where he wound them up. Alan Pardew has got a story to tell. Clive Allen, obviously, towards the end, has got a story to tell. Allardyce, it's got a few stories to tell. So obviously Pulis had a few stories to tell as well. But when you talk about Wenger, two quotes. Sam Allardyce used to always say the old Arsenal teams was when he came with Bolton was, how do you want it? If you want to play football, we can have it. We'll play football. If you want to mix it and have a go, we'll have it with you as well. So they could have it and roll the sleeves up. Bergkamp, and we sending offs under Arsene Wenger. And Bergkamp, Vieira, Petit, there was about over. I think we stopped counting the amount of Arsenal sending offs under Arsene Wenger at 67. We stopped counting 67. But there was probably 15 or 20 more afterwards during that great era when we dominated. So people everyone talks about the Harlem Globetrotters, Henry, and the great football we played with Perez, Petit, Gilberto Silva, Edu, and all those players, and obviously with Carnu. But let's not forget that team had steel. That team would never have won the leagues in 2002, 2004, Invincibles, and 98 if they didn't have that steel. They wouldn't have done those doubles. They didn't know how to mix it. And that's what I think. Everyone looks at Arsene Wenger and looks at tiki-taka. No, this team was tough. Tough. Even after Adams went, it was tough. Yeah. And then it was when Vieira went and he built the side around Cesc Fabregas. That's when I think it was the beginning and end of Wenger. It coincided with the renaissance of Man United and the London domination of Chelsea. And I think that's where you look at Arsene Wenger. And unfortunately, if you talk about the good, you have to talk about the 9 years without success because of his obsession with the Champions League. And he was obsessed with the Champions League. He desperately, and that's why we went 9 years without a trophy. I think if we won the Champions League in 2006, maybe his obsession wouldn't be that great, and he would have relaxed more because he had some great teams. But Europe will always be his. How to say it, it'll always be the stinging nettle on his reign, if you don't mind me saying so. And obviously, towards the end, when the top four became his trophy, that's when Arsene Wenger became a relic. He became, how do they say it, part of the museum, which is sad. And for that, on that basis, I haven't forgotten or forgiven those last few years of Wenger. But I always believed that the compliment to Arsene Wenger. And it doesn't, and it's not a dig. with the great teams that Arsene Wenger produced, I thought if we had a coach like George Graham, we would have won the Champions League at least a couple of times because of George Graham's
Totally agree, Kenny. I mean,
expertise, especially in certain games when he would have made us difficult to beat rather than try and play a football. But Arsene Wenger definitely deserves his trophy, but so does George. Is he the greatest manager we ever had? No, I think it's George Graham in my lifetime. But history will be quite Arsene Wenger on the basis of those first 10 years.
Yeah.
Right, I've got a question I'll ask in a minute, but I'm going to ask it to the chat. I'll give you my view of my best manager in my lifetime is with what he achieved in the 9 years, right? 9 years he was Arsenal's manager, and what he achieved as a player at Arsenal, which is a bit unfair maybe on other managers, but to me it's George Graham. DJ?
Yeah, I'll probably go along with that, Jez. George Graham. And I agree with Kenny. His obsession, Arsene Wenger's obsession with the Champions League got the better of him. Unfortunately, you know, top four was his priority in the end, which is a shame.
Yeah.
The Emirates move unstabilised things as well because, you know, he got, you know, we weren't getting the players in we should have got in. We didn't strengthen in the areas we should have gone on and strengthened. To me, when we lost that Champions League, we should have really, really strengthened the following season, and we didn't. So it was his downfall. But also, it's a bittersweet memory for me with Wenger because his love for Arsenal, you cannot... I suppose what happened was, it was like being married in a situation where you're unhappy, but your love for what you've got is so big you can't move on. And I think that's what happened with Wenger. His love for art, he couldn't come about himself to throw the towel in and say, look, I've taken the club as far as I can go. It's now time for me to leave. If he'd have done that 3 or 4 seasons earlier, then I think he would have gained more respect. But I think his love for the club and what he achieved early in his years there stopped him from doing that.
100%.
You know
what I agree with you. You think about it,
DJ, his biggest downfall in the end.
You think about it, DJB and Jez. If he had gone, you think about the managers who were available.
Yeah,
that we could have got if he had left when he should have done. You think about in 2014 when we beat Hull in the FA Cup final.
Yeah,
Guardiola was available. Arguably, Klopp could have been made available. But the reason why these managers didn't come to Arsenal was because of the fact that Arsenal was still here. Arsenal didn't want to budge, and it was the obsession. I think the reason why I didn't budge because it wasn't so much his obsession with the Champions League, which is well documented and factual. It was the fact that he felt only he could bring us back to the greater glories. Therein lies the problem. He wouldn't let go, and it got to a situation, and sadly, in 2017, 2018, where you know when a relationship ends.
Yeah.
You don't actually argue. It's when one of the parties don't care no more. They don't care whether you're alive or dead. They don't care whether about you as a person. And when you don't care, that's when it's over. Yeah, so I think it's when Arsenal fans just couldn't be asked to protest anymore.
No, we couldn't care. And it's a shame because, as I said, he's absolute passion not to walk away from what he built, what he made, because he had such a big influence on the club. And I don't think he could walk away from it. I think he was frightened of walking away, not because he didn't think anyone could do a better job, but I think he was just frightened of walking away because it was his whole life, and he put so much into it.
I think you've got a point there. I just think it was his baby.
Yeah,
he'd created this baby,
He did. The move to the Emirates.
He did.
That was all him.
And that's unfortunately it was his biggest downfall. Did he deserve the criticism and the abuse he got? I don't think so. Me
Not the
personally,
abuse, yes. So the criticism and not the abuse.
Criticism. Jez, I was just going to say criticism, yes. Abuse, no.
But DJB, don't you think the abuse came because as much as Arsene Wenger loved Arsenal, he fell in love with Arsenal. We were born to be Arsenal fans, all three of us.
Yeah.
Our club, not Arsene Wenger's club. He fell in love with Arsenal, and he fell in love because of he loved living in London, loved living in Totteridge. The club became his obsession. Yeah, but not as much as Arsene Wenger loved Arsenal, we loved Arsenal as well, and that's why some people were abusive because we could see before our very eyes what was wrong. Yeah, and he was part of the problem, and he wouldn't budge. He wouldn't admit things were wrong, and he always said, "Oh, there's two markets." You know the game's over when he says there's two markets, one for Chelsea, one for everyone else. You're not going to win. That's what getting the white flag out, and then selling your best players to Man City. Let's not forget.
Sorry, Jez.
Go on, mate. I've got a great question.
I'm still on, Jez. Yeah, sorry. Go on, Kenny.
It's just one thing, mate. He made us stay in Islington because David D wanted us to move to Wembley, and that's well documented.
Yeah.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he wanted to. There was talks of us going to Ali Pally at one point, wasn't there?
Yes, I remember that.
And King's Cross as well. King's Cross.
Yeah. Do you think as well though? Once David Dean left, I think a lot of Arsenal's demise, and I don't think it's ever been the same when David Dean walked out as well. When David Dean
put the right flag out though, didn't he, guys? When he said that Arsenal need foreign investment, in order to compete with Chelsea. That's a white flag as well, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is. You know,
it was a bit of that, wasn't it? Let's be honest. I mean, I think David Dean had come to the point he just had enough. To be honest, but Harvey says it's a very good question. But who was Arsenal's all-time great manager since our inception? That's a
Herbert
debate.
Chapman.
Isn't it?
Herbert Chapman, wasn't it? Chappers, wasn't it?
Go on.
Herbert Chapman, wasn't it?
Got to be in it. Got to be.
Harvey, you put a hand grenade into this conversation.
100%. Yeah, he's put a massive one in now. Herbert Chapman, I would say, if you go through the history and you read about Arsenal and everything else, I mean, unfortunately, I weren't around then.
He's the only Arsenal manager to retain the league.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he what he done for the club and apparently the what he won and everything else is. Yeah, he's got to go down as one of the best managers ever.
All right,
and he played for Spurs.
Sorry,
he played for Spurs as well.
That's the thing. Why George Graham gets. Yeah, I mean, but although George Graham,
Terry Neill joined us from Spurs in '76.
He did indeed.
And Willie Young joined us from Spurs.
Willie Young, yeah. Oh, terrible.
Oh, Willie Young. Oh my days. He's in the picture there, guys. Yeah, but you can't see. There he is. There's part of his face there.
Yeah.
Right, it's a good one. Before we wrap it up, so I think I've gone for George Graham.
Yeah.
DJ, you went for George Graham. Kenny, you went for George Graham.
Always a George man. But let's not forget, if Arsene Wenger won the Champions League, he might have nicked it.
Oh, without a doubt.
I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah,
I totally agree with you. I mean, we've only ever had two managers won a European trophy.
Yeah.
In fact, if he'd won the Champions League, then all day long, I totally agree with you.
And I still think 11 against 11, we would have won that.
We were cheated, man. Sorry.
I still think we would have won that 11 against 11.
You know what?
All I'm going to say there, as I said, the difference between, I would say that Wenger created with the Petits and the Pires and all that, as Kenny said, like the Harlem Globetrotters of football. Arsene Wenger created the more exciting team and individually players, but
exactly.
George Graham was the best, as in man management and team spirit and never say die attitude.
I think if you had your perfect Arsenal manager, you'll have all three of the characters. In fact, you'll have Terry Neal as well, Bertie Mee, and obviously you'll have Herbert Chapman. If you get all that ingredient together, and you said right, all of those qualities would be dominating football like Man United have dominated, Man City dominated.
But one thing we haven't mentioned is another manager in between of all of this was the great Bruce Rioch that bought one of the best players I've ever seen at Arsenal.
Bruce Rioch lost to players when he told Ian Wright that he needs to be more like John McGinley.
Yeah. and now we've got this current manager.
Anyway, guys, I'm going before we go, right? It's been rescinded, the red card on Skelly.
Yeah.
So laws of the games and cards don't exist, says Lou. Interesting comment.
Public opinion, guys. Public opinion was public opinion. Got that because it was a harsh decision, but it was a well-meaning decision, judged by how he interpreted the law and the fact it was close to the incident.
Yeah. I'm leaning towards. I mean, and I know what Jez says about VAR, and I'm 100% agree with Jez that VAR gets involved too much, and I totally agree with him because I'm not a big VAR fan. However, on that incident there, I think VAR should have given him the option to look at it again. And then this would never have come about. He probably would have given a yellow on the day. As for conspiracy, no, there's no conspiracies against Arsenal. As I said, talking of managers, I think the current setup is a conspiracy against us because I can't believe we're going to go and sign this young lad from, this Nepal.
Don't knock it, DJB. Remember Arsene used to do things like that.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, that's true enough. But been a great debate, DJ, Kenny. Your facts and your knowledge cannot be surpassed. That is for sure.
I enjoyed this. Like this memorabilia is something.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Should carry on this.
It's got to carry on. Yeah, it's got a slot. Definitely. How many we done now? We done 3, haven't we? The comparing 4, isn't it?
Yeah, we've done 3. This is our third one.
Yeah,
third one. Yeah.
So it's got to be the strikers next, isn't it, or something?
Yeah, I've got an idea. I'm going to keep doing these ones for a little bit. I think people enjoy them. I hope you guys enjoy it. I enjoy it. That's for sure.
Yeah, I don't really.
Well, we enjoy it both anyway.
Yeah, brilliant.
Next week, I think I've got an idea for a show. I'm going to start with the strikers. The next show after that will be midfielders, defence, keepers. So it's going to be 4 more shows over the coming month. Talking about more. I mean, it's actually easier doing these sort of history shows, if you want to call them that, with you guys than just doing it on my own. Because all I do is when I'm doing it, I'm just bloody talking. And it's great to have people's opinions. And I might actually invite another person on when we get into it as well. But I really enjoy these shows, and I think that the chat enjoys them as well because you're giving your absolute pure knowledge, and there's no agenda.
No,
I like that. There's no agenda here. It is purely fact.
And the good thing about it is, Jez, as well, is that Kenny will say stuff that I thought, oh, didn't know that, and I'm sure I'll say stuff that probably think to yourself, like the Diego Maradona with a Terry Nil. You know, in '79 we were that close in. And if any younger listeners here don't know, have not seen Diego Maradona, then go and look him up.
Him and Pele are better than Messi and Ronaldo, or Ronaldo and Messi, whatever audience. But in '70s, after Argentina won the World Cup in '78, there was a few Argentinians that came to life. Obviously, you've got Alex Sabella, who went to Leeds and Sheffield United. You had Tarantini, who went to Birmingham, and you had the two Villa and Ardiles at Tottenham.
Who won them the FA Cup when Ardiles went on that mazy run, didn't he, in the box, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh no, Ricky Gia. That was Ricky Gia, wasn't it? Yeah. Went on that mazy run in the box and got it over the line, didn't he? That was a replay, I think, wasn't it? That was a midweek.
Definitely a replay, yeah. I think in the 80s, for the first 3 years, 81 to 83, every FA Cup final had a replay.
Yeah. Jez, can I tell you another team that these managers overcome, which was a fantastic team at the time, was the Ipswich team. Yes. Was the Ipswich team back in the day of Arnold Muir and Ramsey Thompson.
Superb team.
Yeah. Bobby Robson's Ipswich. That was a force and half, that team.
Didn't they win in Europe, Ipswich? So I got that right.
Did. No, they did. Did they win the European Cup? I think
they won the UEFA Cup against V10. I think it was AZ Alkmaar.
AZ Alkmaar, that was it. Yeah. But what a team that was. That was, if you see free flowing football, that was some team.
Frank Tyson, Arnie Warren.
Yeah. Gates.
Paul Cooper goal.
Gatesy. Alan Brazil.
Yeah, that was a team and a half.
John Burley. George
Burley. Great team. Eric Gates.
Yeah. Facts. Hendon says, did I mention Fred Street?
Wow.
Caretaker manager.
No, we didn't mention Freddie Street. No.
So forgot about that one. Anyway, guys, just go through the chat. We're going to wrap it up. DJ, thank you as always, absolute bloody legend.
Oh, thanks, Jez. No, thank you for having me on, Jez. Really appreciate it.
It's great having you.
Love it. Enjoyed myself. Enjoyed all our free debates, because it's good to bounce off memories of our great sides.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
we have some trophies to the chat.
we have won a lot of trophies. And one of the good things about this managerial debate just goes to show you that over the years, in comparison to a lot of these teams, we haven't had many managers.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
So if you look, we've reeled off Bertie Mee, George Graham, Terry Nil, Arsene Wenger. Yeah. There's not been many managers since the 60s, since the late 60s. There's not been many managers.
Arsenal have always liked continuity, guys.
Yeah, but when you look at the teams of like Spurs, Chelsea, Watford,
exactly.
And Liverpool the same. They've not had many managers really in comparison. Yeah. So two great clubs really with history really.
That's a very good point. I'm sitting here thinking, right, from 66, Bertie Mee, up to 76, Terry Nil. Then we had that little spat where we had George Graham. Then we had the Bruce Rioch, Eddie Howe situation, where Arsenal had 4 managers in like literally no time at all. And then Wenger come in, and then we've had Arteta, dear God. But hey, it is what it is. Guys, DJ, give us a shout for the score tomorrow night, mate. It's against Girona.
Well, I don't think. Well, I'm hoping there's not going to be a lot riding on it. I think the job's been done, and as I said in my last when I was on before, despite everything, I think it's been quite a successful European campaign under the new format. I think they've done pretty well in Europe. Do you know what? I think it's going to, because I think he's going to change a lot of the players, and rightly so. I think it's going to be a stinky draw. I think it's going to be a stinky 1-1 or 2-1 to Arsenal. I don't think it's going to be an exciting game, to be honest. I can see it just playing out for a draw or 2-1 Arsenal. I'll go 2-1 Arsenal.
I'm going to go 1-1 myself.
Yeah.
Kenny, what do you think, mate?
I'm going 2-1. I'm going 2-2 because I think I say it respectfully. It's all about Man City on Sunday. Sorry, Girona fans, and sorry to the fans, but Man City's massive. If we don't beat Man City and Liverpool beat Bournemouth, I know we say every week it's over, but it really will be over.
It really will be over if we don't beat City yet. And City did look good against Chelsea. City did look good against Chelsea. Yeah.
You guys will be at the ground on Sunday?
Yeah, we'll be. 100%. Yeah, it's one of the biggest games of the season for me. That any teams from Manchester. The guys know by now that any team from Manchester is my rival.
Well, Man United for me.
Man United definitely is my rival. Yeah.
But it is what it. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up, gentlemen. DJ, any other shows you going on?
I'm on with Dan. I think I'm going to join Dan for a while in a while, which is at 9 o'clock.
I'm with Dan as well. We're both on with Dan.
There you go, Kenny. There you go, mate. Yeah, they can't get enough of us old gits, can they?
Not at all. One thing I need to do is I need to have a shower because I thought there's no way I'm missing this show. But I'm gonna be intrigued to see what they say. But Jez, all I can say, mate, is all the listeners, thank you for joining Jez's wonderful channel. Subscribe, smash the likes, guys. 100%.
He's a complete legend. He's Jez and Kenny, and thank you very much for having me on, Jez. Do appreciate it. Love to you all, my friends. Take care.
You're always welcome. You're always welcome.
I want to second that, mate. Jez, if it wasn't for people like you, there wouldn't be a chart. There wouldn't be avenues for me to get on YouTube, and obviously so where we can actually talk about the old school. There's not many channels that allow Arsenal fans to do that. So thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's important, Jez. I think learning your history about your football club that everyone loves, and not only that, channels like this bring back memories of uncles, grandfathers, mums, dads. You know, it brings back all these sort of wonderful memories. And in today's day and age, with everything that's going on, it's always nice to have a channel like yours, Jez. So thank you very much again, my friend. Thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure, man. I enjoy doing it.
Yeah,
especially talking to legends like yourselves. You know what I mean? It's
yeah, you take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the other side.
Take care, chat.
Take care. There you go.
Take care. See you later.